Bob Stewart has been injudicious. Listen to this. He has said go back to Bahrain to an activist, to a student activist who is talking about his father or grandfather. The student is called Syed Ahmed Al-Wadi, and this is the exchange.
Bob Stewart, for how much did you sell yourself to
Can't
the
stop.
regime?
Bahrain's a great place. End of.
You were paid by him
No way.
recently. How dare you accept money from a dictatorship? 16 years old. Bahrain hosted my father who was 75 years old. Bob Stewart, for how much did you sell yourself to the Bahraini regime?
I didn't know. You shut up, you stupid man.
You are stupid. How much?
It's extraordinary. So not only does Bob Stewart cast a racist slur, go back to Bahrain, but also he calls the protester a stupid man. He says, I hate you. It's a range of stuff. I mean, who is mentoring this MP? Clarkson, Piers Morgan, or simply Suella Braverman? Because all of these people are culpable for setting a standard in public life which is beneath contempt. Of the three, Suella Braverman, I think, is the most pernicious. She stood at the dispatch box in the House of Commons and legitimised racism by banging on the dispatch box and calling people an invasion. What a vile piece of polemic, what a vile choice of words. And there's been no explanation, no contextualisation of that, no apology, of course. She thinks she is right to call people invaders. This has led to people on LBC calling in and talking about bacteria, talking about open windows and insects. I'm really shocked by this sort of language, by the legitimising of this language. It's quite right that Scotland Yard says they are now following up a complaint or investigating. But it's wrong that this is happening in the first place. Utterly, utterly wrong. And the contempt that Bob Stewart shows for people who presumably are his own constituents is astonishing. It's arrogant, it's astonishing, and it's outrageous. Go away, I hate you, you make a lot of fuss, go back to Bahrain. That's what he said. And then later on, he said, the protesters persistently taunted me by saying I had taken money from Bahrain. That deeply offended me. I certainly have not, and told them so repeatedly. I admit I fell for the taunts and should not have responded, which I regret. My comments were meant to tell them that they could protest peacefully or safely, that they could not protest safely in Bahrain. Bahrain gets a very unfair, that they could protest safely in Bahrain. Oh my goodness, that Bahrain gets a very unfair press, and I feel that strongly. I don't understand his comments really, but there we are. Mr. Al-Wadi fled Bahrain in 2011 after being arrested for being part of an anti-government protest. He was able to claim asylum in the UK in 2012. He says, I still have the scars from where the authorities kicked me in the head, and if I went back to Bahrain, I would face further torture and imprisonment. My family members are still suffering from reprisals. He certainly sees this as a racist taunt. I would certainly see that as such, but the core fault, I suspect, well, I believe, lies with Suella Braverman's legitimising of racism in the House of Commons. The lack of an apology, the lack of context, and the lack of any sort of police investigation into what she said, but of course she has parliamentary immunity. We can only hang our head in shame that this government has fallen to such depths.